The cost has skyrocketed, and that makes it scary. Good health care now, because of loss and choice, because of the cost, is unavailable to the people who need it the most. And this is a reflection on what government interference does and managed care does. And the reason why we have to think in terms of principle, and that is who should be in charge of our medical care. We should be in charge of our medical care. Individuals, the patients and the doctors, not the government and not the bureaucrats. The parents should be in charge of the medical care for their kids, not the government telling them what to do. The assumption is that parents aren't smart enough nor care enough about their children. So it will be only the government that will make the decisions about immunizations. So the government comes along and lists how many immunizations. Dozens at times. How many immunizations do kids get? Some, I happen to personally believe, are fine and dandy. But there are some, and the overuse of immunizations can pose a great risk. But that danger should be handled, and this decision should be made by the parents and with their physicians, not the government. There are some bleeding hearts in Washington that worry about children not getting adequate care for psychiatric problems. And lo and behold, they have bills going through Congress and bills that have been passed over my strong objection. I fought this tooth and nail, and we lost these fights. And this is mandatory health testing for every single child in our public school system. That is too much government, too much authoritarianism. They don't need to do any of this mandatory health testing in our public school system. The consequence of that is, on the test programs that have already been established, is that there's a 10 to 15% kids that are put on psychotropic drugs. And there's pretty good evidence that these drugs aren't always helpful, sometimes can be very harmful. And lo and behold, when you look and find out who lobbied for this bill, the drug companies. Believe it or not, it was the drug companies that legislated to mandate this health testing. Many members of Congress may know this information, but they are also the type of individuals that don't have enough confidence that people on their own can figure this out, and that some child somewhere along the way might not get the treatment that they wanted, and so they're willing to sacrifice liberty, even with the chance that they will overdo things and people will end up getting medication that they should not. So this principle of the free market and free individuals making these decisions is so vital. And it's that overall principle that is important. It isn't that we need to take charge of the managers of our healthcare system in Washington. What we need to do is get them out of our way so that we can make our own choices. I have a bill 2117, which is called the Health Freedom Protection Act. And this is a bill that addresses the subject of what you can do as individuals and organizations can do in sending out information to tell people about nutrition and other forms of medical care, preventative health care. But there's a strong determination by the government to use the principle of prior restraint against medical information. For some reason, liberals, who generally are pretty good on the First Amendment, on political speech, have no sense of priority and no desire whatsoever to protect the First Amendment when it comes to economic speech. And this is what we need to clarify and make sure that all of us have First Amendment rights to protect the distribution of information on nutritional health care. The FTC comes into the matter, and they want to regulate. You know, the Constitution has a provision about protecting the right to regulate interstate commerce. And for the first 150 years or so, it was used properly because the founders were very concerned about not having free trade among the colonies, and one of the reasons why we had our Constitutional Convention, to make sure we could travel back and forth and there would be no barriers in trade between the states, and that's why they had this authority to regulate interstate commerce. but it has been abused in the last 100 years to be used to regulate everything we do, whether it's intrastate or interstate, and they come along, and of course the FTC is involved so much in what we do in medical care. And the FTC comes along and they will challenge individuals who are into alternative health care and say that you cannot say certain things and you can't do certain things, and you have to prove that you're not going to commit any harm. Now, what my bill would do is they can't even come near us unless the burden of proof falls on the government. You know, we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. They're not supposed to accuse us first. Over the last several decades, we have had a move toward international government. I'm annoyed by our government growing in Washington. State government and local government is far from perfect. But the way our system was built was to have local government to deal with government. That's where it was supposed to be. We were supposed to have minimal government at the national level. And the Constitution was written with a lot of restraints on the government. The restraints weren't placed on the people. The people were supposed to be allowed to do what they want as long as they didn't hurt people. But we have given up on that. We've given up on local government. We have allowed this massive expansion of government to regulate our lives and regulate the economy and police the world to the point that we're at near bankruptcy, and something has to be done. But one thing that we have forgotten about is our national sovereignty. Some people don't like national sovereignty. Some people like, world government. And we're working in that direction. We've been working in that direction for more than 50 years. Immediately after World War II, we set up the United Nations, and that was going to be to bring peace to the world and harmony. And I haven't bought into that. Some are very well motivated, but quite frankly, I don't like another level of government. We have too much government already. I don't like another level of government, so therefore I resist what so often the UN does, and what the World Trade Organization does, and what the World Bank does, and what the IMF does. I think we'd be all better off without that level of government. There's a big debate going on, and it's been going on for quite a few years, and that is free trade versus they call it free trade versus protectionism. And those people who are in the camp of saying free trade, they vote for NAFTA, and they vote for CAFTA, and they vote for WTO. I don't vote for any of those, and I'm a true free trader. But I don't, because I believe these organizations, these international organizations are controlling, they're managed trade, and they serve the interests of powerful special interests. That is where the big companies and the drug companies go to get protection at the international level. So when you look at whether there's a debate on CAFTA, or whether there's a debate on NAFTA or WTO, what they're doing is talking about international controls, and I'm sure most of you know there's a move on for international control of nutritional substances under the WTO. That should not be part of our system. That is not part of our Constitution. They should not have supervision and veto power over our government and our rules and our state laws. We don't need that level of government. You know, it's ironic that those individuals that call themselves free traders are literally calling for more controls under these conditions. And we are going to meet a crisis. Today, medicine is in a crisis. It's going in the wrong way, and I think all of you know that. We do so little to promote good health and so much to subsidize those companies who are anxious to treat health. We'll end up doing certain procedures in conventional medicine for years and years and years, and then afterwards we'll decide, well, that was a mistake, let's go and do something else. But there's a tremendous amount of influence by the drug industry on our politicians and through the FDA. I mean, there's a revolving door between FDA and the drug industry. If we truly believed in free markets and truly understood the Constitution, quite frankly, I don't think we would even have an FDA. Medical choice is something important, just as is important in all the things